The Gospel of the Lord. It is Christ, the King of the Universe Sunday. So this is all about Christ and the kingdom of heaven, because you can't have a kingdom without a king. Not for long, at any rate. So what all of this comes down to is the basic fact that Christ is the one we bend the knee to. The church term for that is genuflect, which I know a lot of you know. Genuflecting is something that knights used to do in the presence of their king. It is a gesture of obedience and loyalty. And we bend the knee to no one except Christ. So no matter how important someone or something may seem in life, they answer to Christ just the same as us. So when whole governments forbid their people from worshiping in the Christian manner, or at the very least penalize their citizens for doing so, they're not proving themselves stronger than God or anything like that. They are simply acting as dishonest stewards in God's house. And when their day comes to make an accounting of their life and their choices, they will not be facing an approving or pleased Lord. All of their earthly power and influence won't make any difference. Now, as a matter of fact, the Lord of the Rings covers this idea remarkably directly. Do you remember how the third book / third movie is titled The Return of the King? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. In Middle-earth, a major geographic location is the Kingdom of Gondor, and they obviously had a king. Well, one day, the king went off on a mission and appointed a steward to, watch over the place while he was gone. It was supposed to be a short assignment. And unfortunately, what happened is the king died on his mission, and his royal line was scattered and hunted down by the forces of evil. So all of his children and grandchildren, they couldn't just go back to Gondor and claim the throne because it was too dangerous. So for centuries, the kingdom of Gondor didn't have a king, it had a steward to minister to the people in this interim period. And the stewards knew that generation after generation, it was their responsibility, and they would be rewarded one day for their loyalty when the king finally returned. They were ministering to these people knowing that the land was not theirs. And on that day, the king of Gondor would ask, hey, did you remain a true and loyal steward of the people in spite of all the power you had over the ordinary citizens? Or did you trick yourself into thinking you were the king this whole time? Because no matter how powerful that steward might have thought himself to be, the king would be more powerful. No question, hands down. That's us in the presence of Christ. He is the king. He is the ultimate authority. And like the kings of Gondor to the stewards, he trusts us and gave us the freedom to do what we see fit because he trusts us. He's trusting us to be loyal and decent and faithful. And frankly, that is our job in life. It is our vocation to remain in Christ's love. That's the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 9. Remain in my love. Our vocation, our life's objective is to remain in Christ's love. No matter what else we do with our time on this earth, that's what matters the most. And that grand task is only going to end one of two ways. Either the return of the King, the second coming of Christ, either that will happen in your lifetime, and you will apparently give your accounting right there where you're standing at that exact moment, or your life will come to an end first, and then you will meet Christ at the final judgment, which is what happens when you die. But in either case, the question remains precisely the same. Will Christ find your soul to be a pleasing dwelling place for Him? Did you make time for Him, especially on Sundays? Were you honest with Him in the form of confession and reconciliation? Did you give food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty? Did you visit the sick and the imprisoned? Everything that we heard in the gospel today. Or did your soul really belong to sports and news networks, entertainment, food, God forbid, drugs and alcohol? Or maybe you cut out the middleman and you just worshiped yourself this whole time. Well, for the people who live like that, they have got quite a wake-up call coming their way, because the return of the King is inevitable and unavoidable. No one gets to skip that step. You don't get to call in sick that day. The rich and the powerful do not get a pass when it comes to divine judgment. They're not above the law of God. I know it feels like that sometimes. But really, Christ has simply entrusted more responsibility to them than the average person. Their final judgment is going to be fundamentally the same as anyone else's. Did you live your life and remain in Christ's love? If the answer is yes, the King Himself will welcome you as a full-fledged citizen of the kingdom of heaven, and it is awesome there. No crime, no taxes, great food, plenty of hot water, wonder and beauty around every corner. But more importantly than, those imagined little details that we like to fantasize about, no one really knows any of that. What we do know is that it's where we belong. We are meant to be with God, and that is precisely what heaven is. It is to be in God's love always. To be in God's love always. In this perpetual, never-ending war of good and evil, that's what we're fighting for. Perfect, absolutely perfect existence in every conceivable way. It's actually so perfect, we can't imagine it properly. It is beyond our ability to do even that, but that is what's at stake. There is no greater victory prize than you could possibly ask for. But on the other hand, if Christ asks, "Did you remain in my love?" and the answer is no, remember, you can't lie at the final judgment. If the answer is no, then that means that there was some god or idol, named or unnamed, that you bent the knee to. And so by your own admission, you don't really belong in the kingdom of heaven, and you need to leave. What's waiting for you outside the borders of the kingdom of heaven? Well, no one really knows. Apparently it involves wailing and gnashing of teeth. At the very least, at the absolute very least, that is a long and hard road that you need to walk down. I don't believe that God truly abandons anyone. I've actually, frankly, never believed that. I believe God's love is far, far stronger than that. But at the same time, and this gospel is a pretty good example of this, the Bible makes it abundantly clear that it is immeasurably better to remain in Christ's love, because the alternative cannot be anything good. So, remember, the return of the King will happen one day. Until then, live your life, be true to your vocation, and remain in Christ's love.